Hello, I'm Jenny Klochko, and today in Kyiv I meet Kateryna Kuznetsova, the choreographer, young performer, and she belongs to the generation of young Ukrainians who is already reflecting on trauma and experience of war, evacuation, and experience being a refugee abroad. Hello.
Hi.
How are you today?
Thank you. I'm fine.
You've been busy recently, haven't you? You had your performance and you've been visiting other performances.
Yeah, I must say that the last 2 months were pretty busy, to be honest, with the premiere of our piece by INSHA Dance Company called DIM, or I think we had another name of it, My Home and to Fit. It's also a version. And for whole February, I was working on my own project, which you saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I've been on it.
It was pretty intense, I think.
Yeah. Your performance, your project, DIM, you just mentioned, you did it together with your husband, Ilya Miroshnichenko.
Right.
And you work as a team. And DIM in Ukrainian means home.
Yes.
And it is about your experience of evacuation due to the war situation.
Yes, that's right.
And you have been evacuated and you have experience living in Germany.
In Denmark first and then in Germany, right?
And you back to Ukraine.
Yes.
To live under basically daily missiles and danger.
Yeah, that's right. Like for last, how many? Already 4 months, I think. Yeah, 4 months is already here in Kyiv, staying.
But originally you are from the east of Ukraine.
Yes, I'm from the small city called Kramatorsk. It's a Donetsk region.
And it's not far from Avdiivka, which Ukraine recently lost.
Yeah, it's pretty close to the front line itself all these 2 years.
Would it be fair to say that Kramatorsk can be destroyed in the nearest future as much as Avdiivka or Mariupol has been done? And
Of course, I'm not a war expert, but I'm afraid to say so, that of course it's possible. It's 60 kilometers from the front line or something like that. So it's really not that much.
But your parents still there?
Yes, they are. And they don't want to leave their home. And I'm actually understand them.
Really?
Yeah. It was quite difficult, I think, to accept that they don't want to leave the city, the town. But yeah, I mean, it was really hard for me to left Kyiv once and to left all my life behind with Ilya, with my friends and everything. And I just can imagine how it's hard for my parents to leave everything what they have there. So yeah, it was difficult, but I try to deal with it still.
Yeah, but it's basically, it seems like a person should make a choice to save what is called in Ukraine DIM, or home, with everything you have, or to save your life. And people like your parents, they're still making a choice to save the DIM, even it might cost them their lives.
Yeah, I think. But it's so complicated. I think it's so important for some people to feel yourself really at home. Like when I was in evacuation, when I was in Denmark, in Germany, of course I met a lot of very nice people and they were really nice to me and they helped me a lot and everything, But I never felt somewhere like at home. And it was, I don't know even how to explain actually. You don't have anything except you when you are abroad. And of course you can start from the 0 point. You can start to create your life from the very blank page. But again, I can imagine how it was difficult for me in that young age, to start from the very beginning, but how it is difficult for my parents, who is already more than 60 years old, to start from the new page, to be a refugee, to live at somewhere place and be a guest, which is not very comfortable to be a guest, to live with someone in their homes. So, yeah, I think they just prefer to choose not even the building home, but the state of being in your safe place, even if it's not safe anymore. Maybe it's about that. I don't know.
You, at the end of January, you showed the project about evacuation, and I wasn't lucky to watch it when it was premiered in the theater, but I watched it on video, and it's beautifully filmed and fantastically edited. Well done. And but for me, it was surprising to find out the evacuation is, in my understanding, is a kind of good news. You getting to the safe place, you getting away from the bad place, from the dangerous place. But watching your performance, I realized how it can be traumatic, painful, and you get in wounds which is not going to be healed anytime soon. Why it was so strong and difficult and painful for you during this evacuation?
I think the first thing that I already mentioned is that you travel alone, and you are leaving everything behind you what you had before. And the first thing that if you would like to live abroad and to change your life or to find a better place to live, but another thing when you actually were satisfied with what you had before, and when someone, imagine, took you from that place and told you okay, now you should go, and just by yourself, without your husband, without your friends, without your families. And yeah, of course you're in the safe place, and of course it's a bit easier, because I remember myself that the very first night in Slovakia, in the hotel, I was in the hotel in Slovakia, and this was the first night when I'm sorry, I took off my pants when I go to sleep, because before we slept all dressed because of the air alarms during the night all the time, and you need to go to the shelter, and it's winter outside, so it's kind of cold, and you really don't have that much time to gather your stuff and gather yourself and go to the shelter. So yeah, it was I really remember this moment, the very first night when I understand okay, here I can actually sleep well without interrupting by alarms, explosions, and everything. So of course it's easier, and of course it's kind of a relief when you go abroad, because again, it's a safe country. It will nothing happen in the sky, but in general you still have all your mind there in Ukraine. You're thinking about your relatives, your friends, you're checking the news every time, and you just see how your city is damaged by Russian army, and you remember, in your memories, it's still a very nice place, a calm city or something like that, and then you realized, watching on your phone, watching the news, that it's not like that anymore, and it's destroyed, and maybe you even don't understand, will you go back or not at the very first moment. Now, of course, it's a bit, again, easier, because I think the war is going already for 2 years, so we kind of get used to it, if it's not even okay, but still we did. So yeah, I think it's a lot of stories, and I never just let me think. My home wasn't destroyed yet, and I just can't imagine how people which homes were actually destroyed, how do they feel, or how do people who lost their friends or relatives, how do they feel? I don't know. So maybe it's even more painful to just stop that life which you really liked, to live this life. So yeah, I think it's a lot of stories, and it's a lot of emotions you're going through, but it's not that easy one, because I think a lot of people, we really didn't want to go from Ukraine at all. So this is the main point. We didn't want to leave.
But you didn't just get back to Ukraine. You recently married with your husband,
Yes.
so congratulations.
Thanks.
And also you carry on with your productions. And I find it's very fascinating because on one hand, there's a war, there's constant danger, there's trauma. You constantly worry about your parents. And at the same time, you didn't want performance. There's another performance. And you're able and you're strong enough to reflect on those wounds. For example, Dim about the home and process experience of evacuation. There's one thing. The other, the one I watched, being present at the performance, is about your switched from Russian language, and you grew up in mainly Russian culture, in speaking Russian, and you explained in later after the performance that for you it's just stopping speaking Russian, it's like changing your or leaving your identity, which is extremely painful from the what I've got. And so instead of trying to heal your wounds, you're reflecting on it. You're brave enough to look at it, to sort of cry it out, to go again and again. What is it? Is it therapy? Is it you feel this is the moment, making you better? What's going on? I mean, I admire because I see the young couple, which very productive, got back to Ukraine, creating one project after another. And it's amazing. But what is it for you?
Yeah, I think you're right that actually the reflecting is a process of healing itself. And I think it's very good process, which is coming like as long as you can talk about it, you can admit what has happened and how it's happened for you, and you can admit your feelings and you can share it. And yeah, it's all process of healing, I think. First of all, when I was in Denmark or in Germany, I realized that, okay, I'm not a soldier. Of course, I cannot fight on the front line, and I hope I will not to do this. But as a dancer, I can dance, and I think the culture itself has a great impact on people. And sometimes I think it's even bigger than for example, some speech of the political man, you know. Like, as I used to say, the politicians, they talk to our minds, but the culture, the art is talking to our hearts. And like, now you are so inspiring by our performances and everything. As you told me before, you inspired and you kind of feel this highest
uplifting
point, yes, in the emotions. So I think when we show our performance, for example, abroad, so people who are not related to the Ukrainian situation, like who are not from Ukraine, who don't have relatives or friends from Ukraine, they can reflect on our situation only from the news, actually. But it's one thought that when you read the news and they're terrible and they're horrifying, people are dying and everything, and other situation when you see the real person from Ukraine who is telling you her own story, and I think sometimes it has really bigger impact on you, and you can be more emphasized to this person. So in general, I think when I was abroad, I realized that it's really important for me as a dancer, as an artist, to speak about this topic, to speak about war with what I can do with the dance. So that's why I'm still doing this. And all my time which I were abroad, of course, there was some moment of peace and, I don't know, rest, but it's not about holiday rest, you know, just the usual time. But for all the time when I'm abroad, I was trying to do something related to this topic in Ukraine. And I think this is what it is. It's not only about healing, it's just an important moment that you realize that, yes, I'm a citizen of my country and I need to do something to help my country. What I can do as a dancer, dance about it. And here we are, we dance about it.
Did you perform in front of foreigners?
Yes. In Denmark, I was a part of creation, Danish-Ukrainian creation of the performance. It's called My Quiet Home, and it's also about Ukrainian war, but from another perspective, if I say about our performance, DIM. So it's also about Ukraine, but from another point of view. And also, actually, I have performed in London as well. It was, oh my God, let me remember what it was. It was the first anniversary of full-scale invasion in Ukraine. So it was last year, 24th of February. And it was an event which was supported by the American Embassy in London and Ukrainian Embassy in London. And together with the American dancers, we also created a little performance in Winfield House. Yeah. So
Interesting.
I did.
Is it different perception? Is it different energy in the audience when you perform at home in Kyiv? Like I was a few days ago at your premiere, and when it's abroad and people with totally different life experience, with who live in different media space.
Yeah, it's completely different. You're right. It's really completely different. But what are the most important in our piece? That DIM, in the very first point, it was created in Germany, and it was created for the European audience who, as you said, had another life experience, and maybe a lot of that people didn't relate it to war anyhow. So the performance itself was oriented to the European audience, and I think the main point of this performance was really to make them be more empathetic, am I right? I hope that I'm right. To our situation. So like to open this story and to show, as you said, actually, that evacuation, it's not only happy protest that, hooray, we're in the safe place. It's more about tragic stories, a lot of tragic stories, a lot of abandoned lives and everything. But when we showed it in Ukraine, I think it gets some new senses in it, you know, because still in Ukraine there are also people who didn't feel that way, who didn't left their homes, and it seemed that it's really relevant to them too. Yeah.
Does it make it easier to perform at home? Even there's always the danger of air raid signals or shelling.
It's very nice to perform at home, I must say. I think it's also when we did the premiere in Germany, I remember that the first thought which pops in my head was like, oh my God, it's so pity that we didn't premiere like for the very first time in Ukraine. Because, I don't know, it's really important.
There's one thing, going back to your DIM performance, meaning home. I am very far, I'm not close to choreography, performance world or anything, but something I was surprised and I wanted to ask you. During the performance about the language, when there's the story, the main character was speaking Russian and then stopped speaking Russian and then going through some tragic, dramatic emotions because of it. And there's big time present war, and the dancer is dunking in the war and the hair and everything going wet, and sort of like water is like the second character in the performance. But in your other DIM project, there's another texture present. There's sort of like grain, sand, something, and there's the 5 dancers. They very actively using it and spreading and creating amazing things with it. Why?
Why?
What is it? How sort of like for the commoner to understand it? Is like is it more expressive? Is it like a color, intensive color on the painting? What is it for you?
Yeah, I like to say that I really what I really liked in our works, that, and I think in contemporary dance itself, that the performance in contemporary dance, it usually creates this space for the audience when they, like people, can imagine what they would like to see. So what I would like to say, that the choreographer, the author of the work, is not telling you exactly the story like it was, like it is, just step by step, but there is a safe space for the audience to read some sentences or some sentences at all, how they feel it. And I really like this. And the whole this grain story, it was actually Ilya's idea. So I think I can't tell instead of him what it was for him, because it was really his idea to use it. But I can see it as a grain, and like Ukraine is a very agricultural culture nation, and it's maybe that's why it's also that's important for us to be on our land, you know, like physically in that space, because we feel connected very much to our ground. So I also see this scene with this grain as a moment of being uplifted with the emotions even through this devastated time in Ukraine. So there is a lot of death, there's a lot of sorrow and everything, very negative and very hard and difficult emotions. But anyhow, we as Ukrainians, we are trying to stand up, you know, and fight and be very strong and everything. So this scene is actually about it, that we didn't lose this power inside, and we still believe that there will be that day when we can be peacefully working on our land, something like that. So I see it as it is, and I, so far as we performed this piece a couple of times already, and people told us very different stories how they see this scene actually. But I think in general, the common was really this feeling of this power, you know, and life statement, I think, also. So it's something, if we're talking about this symbol of grain, there is something very little, but when you pull it in the soil, it will definitely comes up with something very nice and beautiful. So I think it's also about it is.
Interesting, because I was taking it as a time, as a light which goes past you, because as the full-scale invasion happened, myself, I felt numb for a very long time, and about 18 months, for me, there was one long day of 24th of February, which never stopped. And I thought, actually, if this big war hasn't happened, we all, millions, dozens of millions of people around the world could actually live normal life with going on holidays, celebrating Easter, celebrating birthdays. But many of us, we lost many people we love, and we can't enjoy Christmas or Easter as we used to be, because the war is always there. And sort of like you live the life, but at the same time, the life goes past you.
Mm-hmm. But it's also, you know, I think this is the moment which actually I also started to feel at some point, which my friends also told me, that when you are in Ukraine, you kind of feel this life that much that you never used to feel before. Because, yeah, before it was life, it was some occasions, as you said, some holidays and everything, or maybe some sad moments. But now when you realize that, okay, maybe tomorrow will not happen for you. And I think this thought keep you, I don't know, motivated, it's not the word, but still, you really start to feel this life here and now in more colors. And I think with a very strong emotion sometimes. So I think it's also about it, you know. It's this moment that it's actually war, and it's actually this moment that you kind of losing yourself and you don't understand how to live further. But on the other side, you really realize you start to value this life maybe more than you used before, and you cherish the every moment you had. even more than before. So I think it's also about this difference.
Interesting. What's the texture of war? What's the smell of war?
Oof. Very nice question.
How does it feel? Is it sharp glass, or it's the hard stones, or it's the dry ground?
I think it's dust. For me, it's dust. It's dust from very long roads and very long trips. And as I remember, even from 2014, it's dust from something which were burnt to the ground, you know. So yeah, for me it's dust, I think.
What is it like?
Yeah, I will say that life for me is the sky. I remember myself being in Denmark and I look at the sky there, especially dawns. I don't know, maybe it's according to the location, because Denmark is quite to the north, and every sunset and every dawn had this very beautiful pink color in the sky, and the sky itself, it's so wide and so open. And I was thinking that yes, it really means a lot when you understand this sky is not dangerous for you, it's safe place. And I think all these emotions brought me back to my childhood, when you're just running on the street and just put your head up and look at the sky. And yeah, this is quite a peaceful time, which I remember. And I think the best definition of life for me is the sky.
Are you dreaming? Are you making plans for the future? What is in your dreams if you do dream?
It's still very complicated, I must say, to plan the future. It's not that complicated as, for example, a year ago, when you can realize your life only a month ahead, and it was already fantastic that you have plans for next month or 2 months or even more. Now it's a bit easier, but still sometimes I kind of had this feeling that I don't know how to deal this life anymore, because still the war is still going on. It's not the end of the war. Nobody knows, will my husband fight in the army or no, when this time will come for him, or maybe it will not, we don't know. And that's why when I dream about family and everything, like that, I don't know what to think about it. But yes, I think I would like to see my country peacefully and with the prosperity, I think also. Yeah, and we just, as a couple and at the art union, together with my husband, we just on the very beginning of our way, of our path. And I would like to do more and to create more and to become a really dance company, big one, and to create this place where the young choreographers and young dancers will have the opportunity to, oh my God, the word, will have the opportunity to develop their skills and to build the career, and to have an exchange with the European choreographers. Because when I was in Europe, I saw that, of course, we have a lot of what to learn from the Europe, but we also already knew something on our own, and we could really have this beautiful exchange of experiences and to learn and to teach as well. So yeah, this will be a perfect plan, I think, for us.
Is there something you wish for yourself, for your husband? Do you know that you had the magic wand? It's like волшебная палочка.
Mm-hmm.
What would you wish for yourself and for you as a couple?
Yeah, I would wish peace and very calm life with a big dog, with a big house, and with a big company, with own studio where you can do your art and be in the safe place and don't worry about will it happen today or not, the performance itself.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Today I met Kateryna Kuznetsova. She's the choreographer from INSHA Dance Company. I'll leave the link to the social media below. And please don't forget, like, share, subscribe, and share your opinion. If you have experience with Ukrainian refugees or Ukrainian performance, or maybe our conversation inspired you to watch it. Thank you.